Hello and welcome to another episode of Face to Face. My guest today is an academic, criminologist, lawyer, administrator. He's a man of many parts, one must say. But these days, he is also the Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority. Professor Ken Attafuah is our guest on Face to Face. Prof, welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'm sure when you took up the job of Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority, you would not have envisaged that close to an election you and your office, I must say, would be in the middle of an electoral tussle. Have you been surprised by how this has gone? The year has gone so far for you.
Well, I have been. I have been in this seat before. I was the Chief Executive of the National Identification Authority in 2008. From July 2008 to July 2009. I'm accustomed to the controversies that surround this office. I'm accustomed to the frequent agitations that come the way of the chief executive from sections of the staff. And I'm also accustomed to the challenges that arise in the management of the authority, and I'm talking financial, logistical challenges and the like. But what I had not anticipated, which has surprised me greatly, is the allegation that somehow I would be involved in a scheme to rig elections in this republic or anywhere in the world. That's number one. Number two, that an institution that I head, an institution that is governed by serious-minded women and men of integrity and utmost decency, constituting the governing board, would either sit idly by and blindly allow me and my management to lead this organization into an evil conspiracy to rob the good people of this country of their free will and choice. What has surprised me is the extent to which I believe some persons have gone in interpreting or misinterpreting facts, events, and circumstances in order to construct an image of Ken Attafuah as an evil person involved in criminal enterprise to deprive the citizenry of their free will and determination. That has surprised me.
You sound almost insulted by these things.
It is deeply offensive for your integrity to be assailed on no grounds other than mere conjectures, speculations, and suppositions. There is not an iota of truth. It is not something I have ever dreamt of. I've never had a conversation. I've never had, and it's surprising. You know, sometime last year I had indicated that this position is my worst job, and it was in conversation with one of your colleagues, I think Bola Ray of Star FM. I was a commissioner for human rights in British Columbia, Canada. I've been a university teacher for many years. I've worked for the United Nations. I've done things. I'm a 60-year-old man. I think I've had a full and complete and decent life. And not in the twilight of my life, not at the end of my public service career. I didn't do it when I was young. I have never been impressed by the way politics is done in many parts of the world. And I would certainly not be part of a scheme to deprive people of their franchise. It is mind-boggling from my perspective that people would, not based on any concrete evidentiary basis, but on conjecture, suppositions, and imaginations, come up with such allegations.
You do not think that outside of the allegations, the perception that perhaps you are a very close confidant of the president, some might say, has bearing on this?
Oh, if closeness to political power became the basis of conjecturing and alleging that people are doing evil things, then there will be hardly anybody. Take His Excellency the President. This is a man who became president after at least 3 key attempts, if not more, and spanning perhaps the entire history of our of our return to constitutional ruling in 1993, since Fourth Republic. So he's had a lot of people he knows, a lot of people who have endeared themselves to him, a lot of people to whom he's indebted, and a lot of people that he can constitute a pool from which he can draw. If anyone who is close to him have worked with him or have worked with his associates, if that were the basis, I am close in that sense to him, to his vice president, but you have to have more than mere knowledge of closeness to a power source in order to allege criminality or evil. That's what I'm complaining about. And I think that we debase the essence of politics when we lower the bar, the entitlement to accuse, when we bring it so low, then we are not aiding the enterprise of statecraft and of good governance.
You don't think also that on the basis of the difficulties that your organization has had in carrying through what is perhaps one of the single most important assignments this country has undertaken in its entire history, has brought you to this point where people feel that if there had been a bit more efficiency or clarity in the matter in which the National Identification Authority went about its job, you would not be in the position where people can make these allegations or have these thoughts about yourself and the role you are carrying out?
Well, you raised 2 points, clarity and difficulties. Now, again, I deny that there's been lack of clarity, and I deny that even if there has been lack of clarity, even if there has been difficulties, and there have been difficulties, that one I concede, that they would entitle anyone to make these kinds of allegations. They are spurious, specious arguments, not grounded in anything. They are plucked from the sky. You see, you must raise your allegations out of the realm of conjecture. You cannot just say things because they sound good about people. Now let's look at the 2 pillars of your question. 1, lack of clarity. I don't think that NIA has been unclear. We have been clear from day one. We have been very open, we've been transparent. Sometimes you explain and then people say, oh, you're talking too much. You provide information and people ignore the information, and I don't mean everyone, but there are strategic interests in the media landscape also, and political interests that sometimes selectively highlight or fail to highlight certain things. As for the difficulty, sir, there have been difficulties since day one when President Kufuor established this authority. My former able predecessor, Professor Ernest Dumo, set up this authority in terms of the institutional arrangements. When I took over from him in July 2008, after he had retired, he was even appointed as my advisor. We carried forward, we started mass registration exercise at the Central Region, Western Region, Eastern Region, Volta Region, and I was let go in July of 2009. By that time, we had encountered significant challenges by way of financial support from about January, February, all the way up to July when I was let go. So there were challenges, agitations from staff when wages or salaries are delayed, challenges, matters lying completely outside the control of the chief executive. It's not because of inefficiency or incompetence. Even if I said so myself, I am very effective, very competent. And I think if you look at my track record, objectively, everywhere, whatever it is I have done, I've done it successfully and I've exceeded expectations. Don't forget, I was the chief executive officer of the National Reconciliation Commission.
Yes.
And don't forget, I was the Director of Operations and Chief Investigator at the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and its first Director of Anti-Corruption. And don't forget, as I said earlier, I was a Commissioner for Human Rights in British Columbia, Canada. I'd been an adjudicator of the Canadian Immigration and Refugee Board, and I've had a successful legal practice. And being Dean of the Faculty of Law, and you can check my record at Central University, and being Head of Convocation. The point is that wherever I have been, I've been successful. And this job, if you look at it objectively, from a certain baseline, where did we start off with? What were the resources available? How have the resources been managed? Within what time frame have you done what? Between 2008 July and 2017 January, this whole country produced only 900,000 cards. Issued only 900,000 cards over a period of 10 years. Take about a period of 10 years. Take the period from January or February. I took over 6th February. February 6th of 2017 to now. The mass registration exercise started on the 29th of April 2019. It's a point I need to emphasize because a lot of people forget that that is when we started. We started on 29th April 2019 and we're scheduled to complete on the 27th of March 2020, 1 month short of 1 year, which was our mandate period for the mass registration exercise. Within that period, as we speak, we have registered over 11.6 million people, 11 million and 60 people in 1 year. And we have issued over 7 million cards. That is the missing point. And I think that people need to grasp that. We have issued 7 million cards. As I speak, we have printed over 10 million cards. I can give you the exact figures. It is unprecedented. Nowhere in the world has this been done. And mind you, the 900,000 cards that were produced between 2008 and 2017, that were issued between 2008 and 2017, those 900,000 cards were ordinary 2D barcode cards, pretty much like your driver's license. The card that we are given, the card that we have printed 7 million copies, printed 10 million and issued 7 million. Those cards are smart, dual interface, multi-purpose, with multi-functionalities, identity cards. Those identity cards are also passports. Each ID card contains an electronic passport that is valid for travel within West Africa. By the time this exercise is over, 16.2 million Ghanaians will have passports automatically. On any given day, now that we have invigorated technical capacity, on any given day, just before we stopped work, we had an average daily throughput of about 105,000 cards printed every single day, registrations every single day. We have over 800 printers in the field every single day, printing instantly, depending on network connectivity. It has never happened anywhere in the world. And people are getting a card that is smart, dual interface, multi-purpose, that has a passport embedded on it. The chip on your average bank card is 2 kilobyte chip. The chip on the Ghana card is 148 kilobyte chip. It has sufficient space to contain every identity system you can ever imagine.
Okay.
It's never happened anywhere. And that is why the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, the National Health Insurance Authority, NHIA, and GRA, but these two in particular, are no longer going to produce sector-specific ID cards. SNIT is going to piggyback on the Ghana card. NHIA is going to piggyback on the Ghana card. The NHIA, that alone represents about $30 million savings every single year from not producing cards, just that alone. That's a significant accomplishment. And you know, the criticisms, it has been slow. What has been slow? We ask you to go to a registration center, establish your citizenship, prove that you're a Ghanaian.
That is where the issues lie.
So, what is the answer? Don't prove that you're a Ghanaian?
No, well, those who have criticized you, and by that I'm focusing on the political side of it,
yes,
have raised issues regarding you refusing to accept voter ID cards, which have been long held, and are rather focusing on just passports and focusing on passports and birth certificates, which they say disenfranchises a large section of the populace.
Yes.
And then also there have been the systemic difficulties, some of which you yourself have alluded to. And there have been reports
like what,
of
the systemic?
No, in terms of network issues and others. And then finally, we've also had reports of inherent corruption, which is part of
What? What did you just say?
No, but I'm talking about people making accusations of officers extorting them before they do the process.
It's inherent corruption.
Okay.
Okay, but before you go on,
okay,
let's unpack some of the things you have just said.
Okay.
Neither Ken Attafuah nor the NIA as an authority got up one day and said, we insist on something other than voter ID card or driver's license.
Certainly.
The Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, represented by your MP and mine, passed a law that received presidential assent on 4th of December 2017 that prescribed the voter ID card alongside a driver's license and baptismal certificates as valid proofs of citizenship for the purpose of registering for Ghana card. And sir, there was not a word of protest or opposition from any member of parliament in this country. I want to repeat, there was not a whimper of opposition from any member of parliament. On the contrary, when the bill went for consideration before the committee, the Honorable Inus Afuseni, a leading member of the minority, and I believe the chair of that committee, speaking for and writing the report that went to the plenary, to the floor of parliament, indicated words to the effect that they were satisfied, that is, the committee was satisfied, that ample provision, those were his words, ample provisions had been made in the bill to address or to cater for the circumstances of those Ghanaians who may have neither a valid, neither a birth certificate nor a valid passport, i.e. through the vouching for process. This vouching for process, my brother, has been with us since our return to constitutional rule. If you don't have any of the identity documents in the Electoral Commission law and you want to register, someone could vouch for you. It's been there. The only difference this time is that we insisted that the vouching for must be by oath, an oath, a solemn oath of identity that you make before a commissioner for oaths. So we raised the level so that you will appreciate the seriousness of the oath that you are taking, that you don't take it by heart. So if I say I know you, or I know Bernard, or I know Mercy or Janet to be a Ghanaian, that I'll be doing so in good faith and clear conscience, sincerely believing that what I was saying was true. The purpose was to help us as a people construct for ourselves as a nation a national identity register that we could all accept as credible, truthful, and reliable to the extent humanly possible, that for once in our history as a people, we will give unto ourselves an identity register that contains only Ghanaians. Now, there is nothing wrong with this, at least not in the view of Parliament. And Parliament includes all minority members and all majority members.
So then where did the disagreements come from?
So that's not a question you should be asking me. That is why His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama called on all Ghanaians to go and register for the Ghana card. And he himself, his family, and key advisors went for the Ghana card. That is also why most minority MPs have gone into their constituencies and registered for the Ghana card. That is why the 11 million people who have registered for the Ghana card have done so. That is also why the 7 million people who have actually received their cards have proudly received their cards. One criticism that often comes is, oh, even the banks are not recognizing and all of that.
But that is significant.
Well, you see, there's always a starting point. When you have not reached that destination, when a lot of Ghanaians have not had this card, you could not insist on its general application. This has been the law of this country since 2012, that in about 17 transactions, you must present the Ghana card. That wherever identity must be established, the Ghana card shall be required and produced. Those 17 include your application for a SIM card, application for passport, for driver's license, for voter identification, to register your land, to buy insurance policy, to access government facilities and services that are customarily available to the public, and to do a whole lot of things. If you don't have the Ghana card, you cannot access these. That is the law, not according to President Akufo-Addo, but the laws of Parliament since 2012. We are going to make sure that every Ghanaian who is interested in registering for the Ghana card, and I hope every Ghanaian is, gets the opportunity to register for it, get his or her card, and to use it at the appropriate time. We had hoped that by October, the banks would be called to order by the central bank, the regulator, and that will happen soon. But you want to make sure that a critical mass of Ghanaians have it. I had an awful experience of going to a bank at a Joso, one of these financial institutions. Somebody had lost a relative, sent money through me to some person. I went to go and collect it. It was just about a week before the money would return to the US. I went there and they insisted that I should produce voter ID card or something else, but they would not accept Ghana card.
Yeah.
And I was holding my Ghana card. It was ignorant, but I also know that the banks had not, some of the financial institutions had not invested in the verification platforms necessary for them to verify the authenticity of the claim of that person holding the Ghana card. Whereas they do ocular inspection, you bring your Ghana, your birth certificate, they can look, your
voter ID
card, they can look at it, but they also had invested in a verification system that allows them to check that. I understand that. This is the law of Ghana that we are seeking to implement.
Okay.
Change is not easy for a lot of people, institutions and persons, but I can assure you, a time will come, not very far from now, when we will look back and wonder, why did we criticize this institution so much? Why were we so resistant? There has not been incompetence or inefficiency at NIA. We've managed the resources. There is no people keep saying, oh, you announced that you would do this at a certain time and you didn't. All of those things, go and check and see, when did NIA as an institution ever make a pronouncement? The only date we gave that we couldn't live up to was 28th May 2018.
Prof, hold that date.
When we had a technical hitch.
Prof, hold that date for me. Let me take a quick break. We'll be back on Face to Face with the Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority, Professor Ken Attafuah. Welcome back to Face with Professor Ken Attafuah, Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority. Now, Prof, a few months back, your organization did not buy itself too much public sympathy with what happened in the Eastern region. COVID is on, everybody's staying indoors, and the NIA says, come and let's register. People were not too happy with you. What happened? Okay,
before I do that, let me finish this thought about dates and unreliability.
Please do so.
I'm saying that the only date we announced that we couldn't live up to was 28th May 2018, when we said that we would start with the institutional registration.
Yeah.
It was a piloting, and we had a technical hitch, and it was a no-show. But we went back on the 4th of June. Every other date you had, it wasn't NIA announcing that we were going to do this. Check from the records.
So who was announcing those dates?
I'm sorry?
So where did the dates come from then?
Well, somebody should be doing that. But when you allege that we have done it, you must prove. We have not announced it. The dates we have announced, we have kept. The only one we couldn't keep, it was because of a technical hitch. And we went back on the 4th of June. On the question of Eastern region, and everybody was obeying, and we alone.
You were the accusation was that the NIA was facilitating social gatherings without taking the health of Ghanaians into account, when the president said we should stay home.
Well, I have often wondered why that happened. Not why NIA did what it did. NIA did the right thing, I insist.
You stand by that?
I absolutely stand by that. What did the NIA do? All we did was to comply with the directives of His Excellency the President. What the President said was that, and I think people did not hear him well or were not patient enough. What the President said was all social gatherings are hereby prohibited. Then he named them, or gave several examples. And he made an exception, private burials, and there with no more than 25 people. Many Ghanaians misread that to mean that you could hold any kind of private gathering with no more than 25 people. That was a misunderstanding of what the President said. Now come to NIA. The President also said that businesses and other workplaces may continue to operate subject to the observance of social distancing and personal hygiene protocols. And that's exactly what the NIA did. When the NIA governing board determined that in light of the President's ban on social gatherings and the directives on how to maintain social distancing and hygiene protocols, the mass registration exercise could continue. We put in measures to ensure there will be effective social distancing and personal hygiene. So the President gave his speech on the 15th of March, Sunday the 15th of March. By just a little before noon, the chairman of the NIA governing board communicated the position that this exercise was to continue. We had about 15,000 people in the Eastern region staff. Considerable deployment of considerable quantities of equipment, personnel, and logistics. We had started on the 4th of March. We were scheduled to complete on the 27th. The President said you could continue working subject to social distancing. We had trained our people on queue management techniques. We had trained them on how to determine, even with a simple stretch of, if you like, both arms, to get 2 meters or 1.5 meter distance. We had trained them on how to collect people's names and telephone numbers and give them a numbering system and give them an appointment scheme and let them follow that so that there will not be queues at the registration centers. We had put in place these measures. In addition, we needed to procure hand sanitizers and Veronica buckets and tissues and all of those. By the 16th, 17th, 18th, these were not readily available on the open market. We scouted around for these items. Those we got quickly. I remember going to the Eastern Regional Hospital, Koforidua, met with the hospital director and the head of pharmacy, and they could give us some sanitizers. But the quantities we needed, they could only give us a fraction, staggered over several days. When we started receiving them, we gave them from Koforidua and Aburi and Accra. We got some also from Accra. You started distributing them from the base. If someone got them in Aburi, they will put a picture of it on social media. The person at, let's say, Price or Donkokrom or Achimdan, who has not received it yet, realizes that they have not, and then this complaints start, and the media feed on it. They fed on it. So please, we were not disobeying. We will not disobey the president.
But Prof, if I allow me to interject
sure,
on this,
yes,
so
yes.
you know, my question on the matter is, if you were obeying it on one side, you had trained people on dealing with queue management at your base, the process of getting to your office was not in the hands of the NIA. People were going to use public transport. People were going to walk. And people were queued outside of those facilities. We saw inside your facilities, there was social distancing. But outside of your facilities, those things did not happen. So there were several legs you did not control.
Exactly.
So it was wrong for people.
No. Slow down. Our exercise takes place in communities. Throughout the Eastern region, we had 833 registration centers. The idea was that people were to go into communities or registration centers within their communities. Everyone bears personal responsibility. What you are saying is like people shouldn't go to the market. People ought to go to the market to buy essentials to live. But by all means, individual responsibility for personal care rests with that individual. All that we were saying is that you take what precautionary measures you ought to take. Once you get to our registration center, we will ensure that there is compliance with rules. I'm glad you say that the images you saw reflected social distancing within our registration centers. There were so many pictures on social media floating, suggesting that we were disobeying social distancing standards.
But there were those too, Prof. Admittedly, there were those.
I wouldn't know, but just let me make my point. My point is that there were some of them we even found were pictures taken before the president's directives. Surely there were others that were taken on the first 2 days when we had not been able to put in place all of those effective arrangements. But you see, we were able to get monies to all our district registration officers in all the districts of the Eastern region. I think 32 or so districts, I've forgotten, and to get them to buy the Veronica buckets and the tissues and the hand washing soap and all of that, and to make it work. By the Thursday, Friday, all these arrangements were in place. Management met. They were in the field. They were called back. We had a meeting, and we took the view that we should advise the board to let us discontinue the process. And that's exactly what we did. As we were leaving the conference room, Professor Dumo conference room at NIA head office, we were served with the interlocutory injunction application. And we were also served with a contempt application alleging that I and 3 other senior officers had, even after service of the injunction application on us, continued with the exercise. Of course, there was no basis, but it got a lot of political and media traction, a lot of criticism, and some shocking insults and all of that. But you know something? On the 27th of that same month, March, the Learned Council, who filed the contempt application seeking to have me and the other 3 people imprisoned for something we had not done, wrote to the court withdrawing the application, in his word, wholly discontinuing the action because there was no basis. It was groundless. So it is not everything. You think that His Excellency the President would have maintained me if I was acting in flagrance of his instructions? I wasn't, sir. I was complying with the directives of the board that had studied the situation and had come to the conclusion that NIA as a business, as a workplace, could continue to operate subject to the rules, protocols governing social distancing and personal hygiene. And there were many civil society organizations, no 1 or 2 state institutions, that took it upon themselves to criticize and lambast, and I think it resulted from an inadequate reading, an inattentive reading of the totality of what His Excellency the President has said. You cannot construe a document by reading a portion of it. You have to read it in totality and be patient and understand it. I think we did nothing wrong. We've done everything right. Now, your last point. The corruption by staff.
Yes.
When we started, when you have about, can you imagine as you sit there, if you have 15,000 young men and women out there in the field, I think we've done remarkably well. We've trained them in high principles of nationalism, patriotism, good citizenship, decency, respect for the public, for all manner of people in all corners of the country. Surely you will get 1 or 2 or 3 or a dozen or 2 dozen people who will be recalcitrant, who will be deviant, who will not obey the law. We got some of them. But you also would remember the actions we took against some of them that came to our attention. Those who were registering people at unapproved times and places, we dismissed them. We referred to police for investigation and appropriate action those who were engaged in criminal behavior, those who were stealing registration forms and making photocopies somewhere near Kolebu here, not even our staff only, but members of the public. But our staff, some of them, taking oath of identity forms, making photocopies and running it and using it. And in every community of people, you will have deviance. But how is NIA management, the governing board, to be blamed for the conduct of people, adults, who have been selected, trained, and put in the field to serve their nation, taking advantage of their circumstances or of poor people out there, some of them extorting monies from applicants? Those were despicable acts. We took appropriate and stern action as the circumstances warranted whenever those came to our attention. Some of them, I remember that there was a gentleman from Awan Asare, a journalist from Abusia FM in Kumasi, who took it upon himself to follow up on suspicions and complaints that he had heard about one of our officers taking money, 30 cedis per person, and registering people at night.
We'll take another break. When we return, we will look at the way forward in this era of COVID. Does the NIA stand a chance of meeting its deadlines? Professor Ken Attafuah will answer these questions for us when we return. Welcome back to our conversation with Professor Ken Attafuah, Executive Secretary of the NIA. So, Prof, in spite of all this, coronavirus is here. Your plans have been pushed. How do you move forward from here?
Well, thank you very much. As I've said time and again, NIA has a governance architecture. It is headed by a governing board, which reports through a minister of state at the presidency to the president. That's the law of this country. NIA will, that is management, will obey the instructions of the governing board. I believe that the board will make a decision in relation to COVID-19 when the situation abates or permits, NIA will go back to the field. I like to think that the board may direct that we go and continue with the Eastern Region mass registration exercise and finish it off, possibly in 10 days or so, 10 or 12 days. Then we have a lot of cards which were printed but not issued, and a lot of cards which were not printed because of network challenges. Network challenges are not the fault of NIA. Network challenges are a reflection of the stage of technical development of this country. If we're doing the same exercise in another country, we wouldn't have the problems that we haven't. Elsewhere, we have it even more. But the point I'm making is we have backlog of cases, cards that we have printed. We will come back to Greater Accra and do a mop-up. NIA has submitted a plan to the governing board. If the board approves the plan and directs us in terms of time and circumstance and resources made available, we will go to Greater Accra, do 2 weeks of mop-up, so that those who could not get the chance to register when we ended the exercise here in July last year would get a chance. And we will also issue the cards to those who couldn't get their cards. Of the several million cards that had not been printed, all of them have been printed except about 200,000 or so, which will be printed by May 31st, 2020.
You are certain of that?
Oh, I'm certain of that. We have a daily throughput in terms of, earlier I said that we have, in terms of registration, a daily throughput of 105,000. There was a time we were doing 30,000, which is because we had limited machines. But since last year, November, December, we have had an invigorated technical capacity. There was even a day we did 135,000 registrations a day. At our current capacity, we can do 3 million cards every 30 days. So even if the deficit in the national numbers is 6 million, in 60 working days, we could do that. I'm talking NIA. When it comes to printing the backlog.
But hold on, does that estimate take coronavirus as a variable?
No, that's what I'm saying. That our capacity as it exists, once you begin to factor in coronavirus, it's about social distancing. It's about spacing. But if I'm an operator sitting here and the next person is 10 feet from me, when he comes to sit before me and is a meter away from me, and I am taking all the precautions, the same way a doctor would take precautions or a nurse in attending to a patient. If I take all that precautions, it may increase the time that I spend on a person. But, so it's give or take, most likely add a few more days. But the point is, it will not veer off significantly. We will meet the numbers. Mind you, our mandate, and that is where the conspiracy thing gets painful to bear, our mandate has got nothing to do with electoral commission. Our target was 80% of the registrable population. That population is those aged 15 and above. So when we are done with that, we go back and we do the mop-up. There were 5 regions that suffered low registration numbers: Bono East, Ahafo, Upper East, and Upper West. These 5 regions had the lowest registration figures or targets. We'll go back to them, do mop-up registration the same way that we'll do in Greater Accra, and we'll issue the cards and we'll capture those people that we couldn't capture. The 20% that we couldn't capture, and in this case is more than 20%, and all the Ghanaians under age 15, they will all be registered as part of the permanent officers, which by design we will establish as soon as the mass registration is over. We have the capacity in terms of technology, the equipment, and the personnel. We have more personnel than we probably need. So we'll take the best amongst them, interested in working with us, and create the officers based on funding availability, do the things that we need to do, and get all the people of this country the cards. The law also requires us to register Ghanaians abroad.
How is that going?
That's not started because we want charity begins at home. We want to finish what is happening here, and then we look outside. But we and our technical partners, IMS, Identity Management Systems Limited, we put our shoulders to the wheel, and we're doing all that is reasonably necessary to get ourselves ready for the return to the field if and when the board directs that we should.
So, final words, why should Ghanaians trust Ken Attafuah-led NIA to steer it safely to the end of its registration card process?
Well, Ghanaians we have done that. Ken Attafuah took over from the 6th of February 2017. Between that time and now, we have done so much, it's mind-boggling. If we set out the things we've done, and maybe because of your question, you should probably have a write-up, perhaps month by month, the amazing things we've done. Mind you, this is a public-private partnership agreement that is being implemented. The technology is provided by a private partner, the equipment and all of that. It is the registration part, the public service part, that is by NIA, the field operations and all of that. The kind of technical engineering we've put in, the card that we have designed, I describe it in part, the data harmonization and integration that we are going to have, so that there will be only one identity for every single Ghanaian. You cannot have Ken Attafuah at DVLA, Ken Ajimai at Passport Office, Ken Ajimai Attafuah at somewhere else, and all those multiple identities. Data harmonization and integration, we've done that. We've put a passport on a chip. We've given it to as at now, we've given it to 7 million people. Because of the COVID, I don't know when, but in a maximum of 3-4 months, all those people whose cards are printed across the country would have been given it.
We should hold you on to that.
You should hold me onto it, even in terms of, during the mop-up, because we're not going to do mop-up and then card issuance. While we are doing mop-up, say in Greater Accra region, the card issuance is also going on. But you raise a good point about COVID. COVID circumscribes and delimits much of what it is that we have to do. So we have to take appropriate precautionary measures, and they may have impact in terms of time. But I don't think that there will be great outliers. I think that we'll be within the broad confines, and you can hold us to that. We are determined, if Ghanaians don't get the full benefit of the use of the card, then we have not succeeded. There is a revenue model underpinning this whole business, because a private partner has invested colossal amounts of money into it. They must, this whole business must begin to pay for itself, and let the private partner realize a modest profit on its investment, and let the Ghana government also get money and convert NIA from a cost center into a revenue center. That's part of the whole design. And it is this that is going to, this is one of the game changers in this country, this Ghana card, because it will not only sanitize the identity space and give us a credible means of identifying each other, but it will also transform the way we do business. It will transform the economic and especially the financial management of this country in terms of business transactions, the banking and the telcos and all of that. And I think our success can be, the pride we can derive in our success is to see that this card is in use and no Ghanaian is without an identity. The UN Social Development Goals 16.2 demands that every citizen, every person in the world must have legal identity by the year 2030. In Ghana, that should happen by the year 2020.
All right, then.
Because we are going to do it.
All right, then. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best. Professor Ken Attafuah, the Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority, has been our guest on Face to Face, providing some clarity, I hope, on the activities of the authority, at least for the past 2 years or so. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a good day.